Ian, my boy.
Oh, gee. What's going on?
Ian, my boy.
Just close the door, yeah.
Woo.
Liking the reggae vibes, boy?
Love it. I love it. I'm liking the hair, but
Yeah, man, it's starting to get long, yeah.
are you growing it?
But that's the plan. This is the longest my hair I think has ever been. You know, you always get to those stages where you're like, fuck, it's just not quite the way you need it, and you're like, I'm just gonna cut it short again, so it's neat. But
Totally.
yeah, I feel like I'm almost there.
That's classic, bud, because I actually I said to Marissa the other day, I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna grow my hair." No joke.
That's brilliant, dude. Well, you've always tried to copy me, so it's okay.
Yeah,
man.
well, there you go, man. You always set a good example, so why not? Eh?
Dude, I don't know if it's a good example, but it's an example.
Classic, man, classic.
I like these pictures you've got behind you, but those are new.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a different room now. Like you could probably, I don't know, you can hear it's a bit of an echo. I still need to get some stuff like for the walls, excuse me,
Nice.
so I can get rid of the echo. But we had like a spare room in our apartment, but which we never used because it had a bed in and stuff. And we're like, yeah, see, let's get rid of that bed and use it as an office. And so we got some desks made, which are beautiful. These like beautiful like handmade wooden desks, which are awesome. And yeah, now we just went to the shop the other day and I saw these. I was like, I've got to have something on the wall, you know, like something at least.
Yeah.
And we saw these like, well, they're not paintings, they're just like prints. And I was like, oh, those are pretty cool. And I just needed to up my background game, that's for sure. But
Oh, dude,
now,
is that not a picture of you there behind you?
yeah, this one is. Yeah, this is me. That's definitely me. That's why I connected with it straight away. I was like, yes,
Straight away, but yes,
mirror.
Like a voice. So how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good, bud. Really good. I've been on some fascinating calls, but like basically I've joined this I've joined up with this guy, his name is Jason Noble, and he's been doing what he's doing now for ages. Like he's basically creating a community and a foundation to basically combat like what is going on in the world, you know, and to set up like systems and production lines and logistics. And he's got a bank, he's got a currency, he's got literally everything to challenge what's going on in the world, you know, because people don't necessarily like all the restrictions and freedoms and everything else being either controlled or removed. And yeah, so I've been on quite a few calls with him over the last like few months, which has been fascinating. And yeah, I was on one of the calls yesterday. It was like a 4-hour Zoom call with like 70 other people that are, you know, and every week, like I've basically been on one of those, and there's like between 70 and 100 people, mostly different people coming and going and learning more about this foundation and stuff. And it's fascinating, but just like how people are preparing for like literally the worst to happen. But like you know, yesterday's call started off with like, hey, I don't want to scare you, but like I just want to give you stuff to think about. Like, what would you do if tomorrow you woke up and there was no internet, there was no electricity, there was no phone lines, there was no connection, there was no water, there was no everything was gone. Like, what would you do? And that was the start of the call, and then it like just lasted for like 4 hours, where people were talking about, you know, things that they already are doing in terms of prepping for, you know, flipping Armageddon effectively. And it was just fascinating, but it's just really interesting seeing like everyone's different perspectives and different realities and different like thoughts on what is going on and what is going to happen. And there's like it's like, wow, you know. But yeah, it's just so yeah, that was one of the cool things. How about you, bud?
Wow, dude. For me, it was a very spiritual full moon experience that really was the highlight of my week, bud. I had I've met this girl a couple of weeks ago at this party we went to. She's from Colombia, really freaking cool chick, and very much like into the same stuff that I'm into, right? And so anyway, we decided, listen, let's go do a little like mushroom ceremony on the beach for full moon. And there's quite a lot going on cosmically, right? Apparently, it's like the world is entering into the sixth cycle of the sun, according to the Aztec calendar, which means that it's a leveling up of order around the planet. And a lot of people have been feeling a sense of chaos, of fear, of like this uncomfortable, like really disconnection, like not really knowing the place or your place. And a lot of people have been feeling this. I don't know if you've had moments of that, but apparently that is necessary because laws of the universe say that every new level of order has to be preceded by some level of chaos and breakdown first. So I think, you know, the conversations that you're having with this group sounds like the same thing, you know, like they're expecting this breakdown of a system so that a new system can be implemented and built, one that serves us better for the future. So, but we go down and we make it very intentional. We set our intentions and we do this amazing meditation. One led by East Forest. I don't know if you know the
I
DJ East Forest.
love East
So
Forest.
cool, his music,
Wow.
right? But he's
He
got this
was
one
there.
meditation called Meditation for Chaotic Times.
Oh, it's the
So,
best, bud. I love it.
so we start with that one. Then we do a chakra cleansing meditation. So we use breath work to focus on each of your chakra points and really like fully expand and allow the energy to start to run through each chakra point as you go up. So you do these 7 cycles of 7 breaths in 7 and each with a different cadence. And frick, man, as we start to go into that meditation, but the beautiful mushroom teacher starts to like take us into this incredible psychedelic world, bud. And at the end of it, we were both just like seated there looking at each other going, what was that, man? It felt like every cell in our bodies had just like exploded into this like beautiful dance of joy and celebration. So then we relax for a little bit, bud, and then the moon starts to come up over the ocean. And it was this intense red, beautiful moon. I don't know if did you see it on Thursday night?
Yeah.
But how was that color, man?
Crazy, bud. Yeah.
Incredible, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the moon and I just close my eyes and I can feel the energy, but it was like a voice of the universe coming and saying how precious this thing called life is, you know, the sovereignty of our existence. And it took me back, bud, to the beginning of time. And I just saw like this cosmic crashing of energy and material and matter, and it's all starting to come together, you know, at the command of this divine intelligence. And then it took me through the ages, but as things started to come out of the ground and beings and these animals started to like develop and grow and take over the earth and the plants, and then eventually humans coming into form, bud, and then generations of humans figuring stuff out, right, and building and growing and moving to our point, suddenly boom, to me sitting on the beach looking at this ocean and this moon. Bud, now listen to this. This is fucking mind-blowing, bro. So I don't know, would you consider yourself to be a sun person or a moon person?
Good question. I would probably say, I mean, it depends on what the actual definition is, but just thinking about it, I would say I'm a sun person, but I don't know
Okay.
the two definitions of what the
So it'd
difference
be
is.
like, what really turns you on? Do you enjoy watching sunsets and sunrises? Do you like to be out in the sun? Or do you have an affinity for wanting to see the moon, like to be out at night and bathe under the moon? It's like, I feel like there are these two types, you know, like you gravitate to one or the other. So I'm like, I've had a fascination and a real gravity towards the moon, right? And I'm sitting there, but And the message I get is, this is the night that you were conceived.
What?
So I'm like, and I can feel this cosmic energy coming from the moon. And then I imagine and I see this energy coming to my parents, right? And them coming together and this energy moving through them to create me, bud. So I'm like,
Wow.
so I'm sitting there and I get this and I'm like, I know it's true. And I'm like, hold on a second. So then I start counting the months from May through to February, bud.
Yeah, I just worked it out now. It's crazy, but it's so
And I'm like,
crazy.
why on earth would I have that thought on this moment tonight? And then you start to realize, bud, that nothing is ever coincidence, bud. It's like the divine intelligence is speaking to us all of the time.
Yes, but that is so true, Chana. Like, there is something that is, I don't know what it is, controlling or connecting or whatever us that is impossible to explain, you know, like I haven't got a story like that, but just like synchronicity of things. You know, Craig and I, like we speak on you know, audio message like pretty much each day. And literally the last month, like he's told me something or I've told him something, and he's like, "Oh my God, you are kidding me!" Like literally, I was something like that happened to me, you know, or I was thinking something like this, and they were both, you know, and we were both just like, "Yes, you know, what's going on here?" It's crazy, but there's just so much, there's so much that we don't know, which is just so cool, isn't it?
But it's unbelievable. It is just so special, right? And we've forgotten. I think humans, bud, are just so distracted with bullshit. We've forgotten the sovereignty of what we are, bud. Like
Mm.
every moment you and I are talking or we interact with another human being, it's a sacred moment, bud. When you
Mm.
think about what's had to happen over time to get us to this point. So then I'm sitting there and I start to imagine all the destruction and the damage that we're doing to the planet, right? And I have this overwhelming sense of how fucking dare we?
Mm.
How dare we fucking treat the planet, bud, the way that we treat it and destroy it with such like,
Doesn't
as if
matter.
it's just nothing, you know, just to be raped and pillaged and animals to be slaughtered because what? We're trying to make money? And I had this overwhelming sense of what the fuck are we actually doing as a species? Like, we've got to wake up, man, to what we are, bud, which is from the very thing that we live on, right? And then, so I'm having this deep sense of like the importance of our experience, right? And how we have to fucking acknowledge it and just treat it with such respect. And then it takes me out to the bigger scheme of things and just how vast and massive this whole thing is and how small and minute and almost inconsequential we are. So now it's this complete opposite opposing story of like, it doesn't matter. You're so tiny and small, and this is just a flick in the bigger thing combined with this, but it's so fucking important and sovereign. And where these two moments of thought intersect, I connected with God. And it was like his personality, right? This thing that we try to describe that we feel that we are is exactly that. It's everything's important and nothing's important. It's like care about everything, but don't care about everything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
Yeah.
this. And that is, and to me, I was like, that is a God moment. It's the unfathomable. It's
Mm.
the opposing stories that come together in that moment that just leaves you completely breathless.
Yeah. It's so crazy, but and it's both those things are like true in their own right, aren't they? Like everything's important, but nothing's important. And it's like, then you're like, oh fuck, then what, you know? Like, yeah, it's so crazy, but it's so crazy. I was listening to this fantastic podcast this week. It was Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry, right? And they intentionally spoke for the one of the reasons is because they come from opposite sides of like spiritual and religious beliefs. Okay, where Jordan Peterson he's a religious guy, and Stephen Fry is atheist, right? But they also came together because they felt it like their responsibility as humans to demonstrate the importance of debate, dialogue, and conversation. And that actually the only way that we are ever going to resolve anything in the world is if we talk to each other. And especially if we talk to people that think the opposite to us, and it was like the most amazing thing being a fly on the wall, listening to these. I don't know. I mean, I can't even think of a word for these guys. Like literally, they are the smartest in their own field, sort of thing, and they can flip and remember passages out of books and history, things that they've learned, and they can quote stuff and guys' names and like just bring it all together, at the right time in a conversation when they're debating and disagreeing, and you're just like, wow, you oaks are special, you know what I mean? And once again, like when just to tie back to what you were saying now, like, both their realities are so different. And to one of them, something's super important. To the other one, it means nothing. And to the other one, something is super important. And to the other one, it almost means nothing. And maybe that's also like where those things, everything's important, but nothing's important sort of join, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was just a fine lesson in how to speak to people and how to try and find a middle ground. And even if you just disagree, to still be kind and courteous and understanding of the other person and just go, yeah, that's cool. And that's how you see the world, and this is how I see the world, and I respect you 100% for that. And yeah, the, just a lesson in communicating, but it was fascinating. So good to see.
Wow. Yeah, man. Well, thank God for people like this in the world to be great examples for all of us, right? Um, man. Yeah, the whole thing about judging each other based on how we see the world it's been the basis of every conflict in
Mm,
humankind, right? That
yeah,
my way is the only way, or it's better than your way, and therefore, you know, you are somehow less significant than me.
exactly, exactly,
because
exactly.
because you see the world differently. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, now in the current state of the world, this is getting blown up and blown out of proportion and stuff, and we're not, we don't seem to have the time um, to try and speak to people like, with the opposite thoughts of us. And it's extremely damaging, and it's divisive, and it's not healthy at all. um, and we have to stop doing that. I think we live in this world where like we feel like we need to agree 100% with somebody, and if we don't, then nah, fuck that person, they're a dick, you know what I mean? but
Yeah,
but
they're not part of the tribe.
exactly, exactly. But it's never been like that, like even you and me, like we think along the same lines, we're cut from the same cloth, whatever. There's still going to be 20% of stuff that I think that you're like, yes, you're a bit flipping crazy, or I don't agree with that, Gareth. And there's still going to be 20% of what you think and do. And I'm going to go, yes, you're Ryan, but that's also where the magic happens, really. It's like oh, maybe I can learn from this 20%, or maybe I can learn from your 20%. But at the same time, that's what makes our relationship cool, is because we're not the exact same. Otherwise it would just be boring. Do you know what I mean? And I think everyone just feels like, it seems like, no, you have to like everything, otherwise no, that person's not part of our tribe. And that's part of the problem right now, is we have become too tribal, I feel.
Mm. Yeah, and the tribalism is what helps people in power structures stay in power, but it's designed that way. Because if everybody just loved everybody, then how would you ever get somebody to vote for you? You know, because you don't stand on an issue that you believe in, and I'm going to fight for your, you know, for your way of thinking. So it's an old system, but it's an old system, and it's got us to this point. And now I think it's time for something new, bud, because you know there are no more lands to conquer, bud. There are no more, you know, people are happy to take on different cultures and different ways of thinking now. You know, now it starts to become a blend. So we've been separated by time and space, and you know, lack of communication because we didn't have all this stuff. And now suddenly it's like, okay, we're one village now, one village, and now we're starting to learn and embrace and adopt. And you just look at things like food, right? You know, here you are, I'm in the States, and I can eat literally any type of cuisine any night of the week from anywhere in the world. And you listen to the music, and it's a blend of Latin and American and from Europe. And it's just, you know, we have become now a global tribe. And so where does the where does the space of tribalism now fit? You know, when we start to realize that this world is for all of us, and that we have a divine right as a human being that came from this earth to be able to live anywhere we choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's even more reason for us to come together to speak and to listen to each other, you know, and to actually realize, you know what, we are all the same, you know, really, you know, there's a few things that kind of separate us, you know, that just because of that's what we might believe in certain things. But actually there's probably a set of values that we all have in common, you know, and or principles or something like that. You know, we're like, yeah, cool. We want freedom, we want autonomy, we want love, and we just want to be healthy and have a good time. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, like you said, maybe there's the chaos has to happen before we can get to that next level. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that seems like what's happening.
It's interesting in this book I've just read by Eckhart Tolle, you know, The New Earth. Have you read that one yet?
Yep.
So you know, towards the end, he talks about, so the new Earth is it's a new consciousness, right? And and he said, as this new consciousness starts to birth that we're seeing, we're going to see the dying of the ego, which is the old world, but it's going to act up even worse before it eventually dies. So as we start to see part of us, part of our human species start to reach this like more expanded consciousness, love, compassion, peace, openness, acceptance, etc., we're going to see the other part of us really come out, and a lot of damage and war, and like it's almost like the last fit of rage of an old persona. So yeah, bud, we're in for some interesting stuff. Some
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting stuff still before this whole story plays out.
Yeah,
And and it's never the end.
exactly, bud. Exactly. There's never the end. Here's a question for you, because I was speaking to Craig about it as well, because I'd noticed a change like in his kind of like acceptance of things, you know, before before he started uh, um, taking like doses of psilocybin and these sort of things, you know, um, he was much more set in his ways in terms of, you know, like this and this and this and this. This is my thoughts on religion and the world and blah blah blah, you know. But since he's been on this journey over many years now, you know, he's kind of like just become so much more kind of accepting and sort of almost calm and whatever about these things, you know, and it could also just be age and whatnot. But what influence do you think sort of plant medicine and, you know, psilocybin and these sort of things and whatever have had on you?
Mm. You know, the recurring experience from it is that feeling of unity and expansiveness with everything. You go to a space where you truly are not um separate anymore from anything. You leave, you break out of your body and you reach that place of, they call it 5 dimension, right? 5th dimension. It's no space and no time. And when you sit in that space, bud, and you realize that everything is just a mental construct, and for moments you break out of that mental construct, it just changes your perception of everything. And for me, it keeps bringing out more and more the sense and feeling of love for everything. And yeah, bud, it's just unbelievable. Plant medicine is just, it's got an unbelievable way of giving you the information that you need at the time to wrestle with the things that you're doing. And it's just like, it's magical, but it's like, it's just the pure mysticism of it, that feeling that is just so different and powerful. It's difficult to describe, but like words don't do it justice. I really feel, to be honest, Gareth, I really feel every single human being has to do it at some stage in their life, because it truly is mentally and physically transformational. You go from almost not understanding your place in the world to feeling like we are the world, like
yeah,
we're not just this little separate human being plonked here by some other entity, and now you feel lost and alone in the world when you don't have people around you. You suddenly feel that you are it. You start to look at through your eyes as God himself. And I guess that's the change. And it just starts to crack away one little layer of ego at a time, because the definition of our ego here is attachment to all the external physical things that we've experienced and collected over time. So if you think about it, when you're a young kid, you're just a young kid having a fucking great time. But then at a certain age, you're like, no, I'm Gareth Martin, and I'm from South Africa, and I'm a Joburg boy, and I'm a sportsman, and all this stuff, right? And then you get a title at work, and then that becomes important to you, and you identify with that, and you put the suit on, and all the shit that is just collection of physical stuff, which is not even real because it doesn't last forever. Then you have a plant medicine experience, and it just blows all of that away, bro. And you suddenly realize none of that is important, but none of it, bro. Like, that is the very thing, the attachment to the things that are not forever are the very things that make you miserable, because you identify so strongly with it that when it disappears, and it will disappear or get stolen or destroyed or whatever, then suddenly you're left in the space of, oh shit, now what? What am I if I don't have this thing?
Yeah, it's powerful stuff, bud. And what's so weird, and I think it's almost like part of this transfer of like, or change in the God or whatever is going on right now, like, how these things were looked down upon, like for well, not forever, but for maybe say the last couple of 100 years or whatever, like it's like, oh no, you can't touch mushrooms, or you can't flipping smoke weed, or you can't flipping take ayahuasca or whatever. Like, that stuff's really, really, really bad for you. But like medicines and stuff are really, really, really good for you, and it's good now that these things are almost becoming not mainstream, but they are like at least being dropped into our consciousness again and getting used. So for example, like psilocybin is now going through some real rigorous, should we say, testing that is funded by like government organizations around the world, and studied by like serious scientists and stuff too, to help people with things like depression, but actually also, I think there's more to it, not just the depression. They're like also trying to go, okay, cool, what else do people experience as a result of taking these, and it's that can only be a good thing, I think, that we're now going, okay, Mother Nature gave us these things, let's actually flip and use them.
Yeah, for sure, bud. And if you think about every civilization in the past, have always had ceremonies and some sort of plant medicine going on that they would use to connect with, the divine, to get visions for the future on what they used to do. The Vikings were big into mushrooms, obviously all your Amazonian tribes, etc. But even in like Roman and Greek times, they used to go to places like Ephesus, and you would go see a person to take this drink and connect with God and the spiritual entities. My only hope now is that Western medicine start to recognize the spiritual aspect of what we are, because it's like science can't explain that, right? And if science can't explain something that we know is there and is part of all of us, like where do we sit then? Because what are we going to be told as this stuff starts to get controlled and people figure out how to make money from it? Because that's ultimately what's going to happen, right? And it'll all be legalized, but under very like tight, rigid sort of constraints and medical rhetoric. So yeah, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. But you're right. It's definitely becoming very popular, and most people that you speak to now, but have either heard of it or they've experienced it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, definitely. And also not just like you were mentioning, like, you go back to the Greek and Roman times, but there's guys that have studied like the origins of religion and Christianity and stuff even, and they're like, well, there's reason to believe that there was guys that were taking kind of mushrooms, and that's and whatever else sort of plant stuff that resulted in, say, Christianity and stuff like becoming a religion, and there's also, if you go back, like not maybe in our lifetime, but our parents' lifetime or grandparents, perhaps, like Christmas cards and that sort of stuff all used to have mushrooms and stuff on them, and the gnomes, which were these little elves, and now they're little elves, whatever. But yeah, it's just so fascinating how that could have been a reason for even some religions starting, so yeah, there's so much to still understand, and also there's so much that it will always remain unknown, which is part of the mystical part of being human and alive, isn't it?
Man, yeah, the divine mysticism of it all, that's okay not to know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
a lot of these visions, like you read the Bible and it's like, yeah, so and so had a vision, but he was tripping. He was
exactly.
tripping, but like he had eaten the mushroom and he had a great vision. And yeah, but that's altered state of consciousness. You go into a different dimension and you pick up information that's swirling around us, and then you bring it into the 3D.
Yeah. Yes, but it seems like a good place to finish, because there's
Yes.
so much there for, I think, everyone who might be watching or listening just to think about, like, yeah, our connection to plants and the world and what else is out there and what we do know and what we don't know, and how all of that is okay and beautiful.
Yes, it's all okay. It's all good. It's all good at
Exactly.
the end, but like, shit, man. Yes, it's all love. But